What's up, guys? Welcome to Knockers on the Bottom. I'm your host, Jay Mill. Jay Miller, if you like. Let's get into it. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. We're at 81 subscribers now. So we're trying to get to 100 so we can give something away. But yeah, let's get into it. So a lot has happened since, last time Knockers on the Bottom aired, right? There's been so many freaking changes. My head is spinning, but that's a good thing. It's that time of year. Football is back. We actually have a football game this week, so that's going to be awesome. Thursday, not the Cowboys, but just in general, you got the Hall of Fame game, so you get to actually see some people hitting on the field. I'm football starved, so I'll be tuning in. And if any of you are football starved, I know you'll be tuning in as well. So let's get to, I guess, the good news first. Let's try to compliment sandwich this thing. The good news, Jake Ferguson got his deal done. 4 years, $52 million. If you add on that this season, I think his base salary was $3.6 million. So they are going to move 500,000 of that into this season. So now it's going to be 4.1 million. So if you want to tack on this season to that, it's about a 5-year, $56 million deal with $30 million guaranteed, and a $12 million signing bonus. So he's locked in for the next few years. It's a good thing for Jake. It's a good thing for the Cowboys. He's slated as the 7th highest paid tight end, but I will say a little bit of me says, maybe, waited it out just a little bit longer. And because he's coming off a bad season with injuries. But on the same token, I can't have it both ways, right? I can't get upset that the Cowboys take forever to do all of these contracts. And then when we finally do one early, complain that, oh, it might have been too early. It's it's kind of one of those things where you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. The fans are happy, in one section, and then the fans are upset in the other section. You can't really please everyone. And it's kind of weird too, because it does, to the negative side, it does feel like the contracts that the Cowboys do are the contracts that they did for like Jalen Smith, who was an injured player, then they did Michael Gallup, who was coming off an injury, and gave him a big deal. And then they did Dak Prescott coming off the foot injury and gave him, a big deal. So it's just weird that it seems like when the players are coming off an injury, that's when the Cowboys want to pay them the most. But then when you have somebody sitting over there, healthy, ready to go, wanting to play for you, that's the guy that you want to drag it out with, whether it was CD and Lamb last year, whether it was Zach Martin the year before that, and whether it's Micah Parsons this year. It seems like when somebody's healthy, they don't want to do it. But then when you're Terrence Steele coming off a torn ACL, let's sign you up. So, I mean, Kevin Hagelin, 105.3 The Fan, shout out to 105.3 The Fan and Kevin Hagelin. He joked that Micah messed it up a little bit. Maybe he should have got hurt, even worse last year and been out and missed the whole season. And then the Cowboys would have extended him at a high number. But because he's healthy and he's good to go, that's going to hurt his cause, for getting extended early. I just think it's the game that the Cowboys play. And what'll happen is it might be one of those things where Micah just has to take it all the way up to the deadline. Because let's say Micah's asking for $45 million. If Micah's asking for $45 million, similar to Dak asking for $60 million, and the Cowboys are like, we're not paying that. And, Micah takes the stance that, okay, we'll play it out. And then, I'll talk to you at the end of the season. Once the season starts, I'm not going to, play this game with you in the contract. I'm going to focus on football. Then it'll be a little bit, Cowboys might take it up to the last second and give him everything he wants. But I don't agree with the idea of necessarily dragging this out. You don't do that to players that want to be here. The Cowboys have given, people everything they wanted in a contract, and kind of played this game with some people who, quite honestly, we might have been okay letting Dak Prescott walk. Not saying we would have been better this year, but, we could have seen what that world looks like. We could have let Zach Martin walk. He was aging at the time. A player that wasn't necessarily at the top of his game and playing chicken with us. CD Lamb, I don't want to do that with CD, and I wouldn't want to do that with Micah as well. But neither here nor there. Jay got his deal, and we're still waiting on this Micah deal to play out, and hopefully it does here soon so that everybody can move on and start talking about other things. So now let's get to the very bad, the injury situation. So we came out of the first 4 or 5 days of camp pretty clean. It was looking pretty nice there. And then soon as the pads came on, That's when all the BS started. So you'd start running down the list of everybody who's kind of hurt themselves. You got Robert Jones, fractured neck, 2 to 3 months. And that sucks for him because I don't think he was going to take Booker's spot, but he was getting some first team reps and he was going to provide very good, high quality depth. And he still might do that. 2 to 3 months isn't the whole season, but now, we're going to end up seeing you around Halloweenish because, or I mean, 2 to 3 months, sorry, because we're going to end up seeing you around Halloweenish because we got to wait for that neck to heal. And then we got to have you, practice for a little bit. So I think he's going to end up going on the pup list, and that'll, at least keep a roster spot open. I guess that's the positive I can take away from that is that, we can stash an extra offensive lineman without having to take up a roster spot. So then you have the other one, Terrence Steele. He sprained his ankle. At first, they reported it as a high ankle sprain, which was kind of alarming because that's a 4 to 6 week injury. But it looks like it was just actually a minor ankle sprain, and they kind of gave him a couple days off, and now he's back at practice, good to go. And then the big one, Tyler Guyton. So when he went down in practice, it was originally reported because everybody wants to run and run their mouth that he tore his ACL and that the Cowboys feared it was a torn ACL and he was going to miss the season. And so when I first heard that, I said, damn it. My mind, in my head, I automatically pivoted to Awesome Richards because I thought, okay, Awesome Richards has at least shown some, comparable play or confident play and play that's at least good enough to get you by in a season. But then, thinking about it going, well, if we want to have any chance of getting, any semblance of something different than what we've had the last 30 years, we're probably going to need better left tackle play than what Awesome Richards can provide. So I was torn in that struggle there and trying to figure out, do we go to Adeniji? Do we go on to the outside market and try to bring Tyron Smith out of retirement or go sign somebody off the scrap heap? And when I say the scrap heap, is legit the scrap heap. So maybe have to flip draft capital, but anybody who has a left tackle worth playing is not going to give them to you for a draft pick, not an offensive lineman, not in this league. So, my mind was spinning. And then about 45 minutes later to maybe about an hour later, we got the actual news. Thank God for Todd Archer. Shout out to Todd Archer getting the actual injury report and being able to tell the truth, basically, and tell us that Tyler Guyton has a fractured bone in his knee, which is still incredibly painful and sucks for him and all that good stuff. But that's a 4 to 6 week injury as opposed to a season-ending injury, which the ACL would have been. So you take a look at it now. You put 6 weeks on the timeline, let's say the full 6 weeks to get healed, plus, get yourself up to speed to play. I think you're looking at week 2. If you're talking a full 6 weeks to heal and then a couple of weeks to get into playing shape, then I think you're looking at maybe week 4. But either way, the Cowboys are in a much better position than they were or than they thought they were when they were originally, had him go into the medical tent. So I'm excited that Guyton's not going to miss a whole season. I am a little bit, not deeply concerned, but it's going to suck a little bit for him because he needed this offseason to practice and he was already having a pretty good training camp. And then he started to look better and better as he went. When guys lose this time, it might take him, 2, 3, 4 games, of playing plus in-season practice to kind of really hit his stride. But that goes also to the nature of what I was speaking about when this whole offseason came together is that the Cowboys have some nice pieces and it looks like they're going to be a better team, I think, than they were last year, as long as Dak Prescott's healthy. And with that, though, I didn't think that they would come out of the gates like storming and firing and being the best versions of themselves. I feel like they were going to, work towards a peak. So this is going to be part of that work towards that peak. Some of these guys, when they come back, you have all your depth, you have guys playing in the right places, and then they start to get some time together, then you might, as you start to hit around that Thanksgiving time where your schedule gets as most difficult, you'll be able to hit that peak. and then hopefully start playing your best football going towards the last 6 to 8 games of the season, which is where, your toughest point in your schedule comes, and you're going to need to be playing your best football anyway. So then you go to running back Deuce Vaughn. He has a hamstring. I think that pretty much, I don't think he was going to make the roster, but I think this pretty much seals it because Jaden Blue has been looking awesome in these practices. He had a nice one-handed grab when they were in shells, but then you saw some of the explosive runs when they went into pads. And when I was watching the blue right scrimmage, you saw he had a couple of very nice runs, and then followed it up the next day when they practiced in pads again. He had a very good practice as far as showing some explosive runs and showing some speed in the open field. So it does look like he's starting to pick it up when it comes to running the football. I know Brian Broaddus, shout out to Brian Broaddus, 105.3 The Fan, because he's there on the field, he gets to see a little bit more, than what I get to see just, clip farming and putting together things off of DallasCowboys.com and whatever I can find on different social medias. He's also saying that, Jaden Blue had some nice work in the blitz pickup stuff. He was able to sort out the blitz and kind of step up and protect Dak Prescott and give him time to, step up in the pocket, or maybe it was Joe Milton, one of the two quarterbacks, to step in the pocket and make the throw. And I don't know the result of the throw, right? But that's not on Jaden Blue. The more important part of that for him is that he's actually processing the blitz and being able to sort out who's coming from where and stepping up and squarely protecting his quarterback so that quarterback has time to get the ball off. And if that's something he can do, that means he can play running downs and passing downs, because you don't necessarily have to account for him, having a mental error on a blitz pickup. If for some reason you put him in the game and you don't want to have a tell, you don't want the defense to know, oh, well, Jaden Blue's in the game. We know we can tee off and blitz on Dak now, because either they're going to throw it to him out of the backfield or they're running the football. So we can kind of come close to the line of scrimmage and just take off, and if for some reason, we get a blitz going home on a pass play, if he's not getting that ball out quick enough, we know we got him because the rookie's in there and he can't sort out pass protection. If he can prove that he can do that, then even if defenses do try to come at him, he becomes a valuable piece because he can pick up those blitzes and allow his quarterback to step up, which means he can get more snaps on the field. So then you also have Brevin Spann-Ford. He's out for a few weeks. Looks like his is I think it's an ankle as well, which kind of, sucks. But for me, Brevin, how I feel about it. He does something well that none of the other tight ends do, which is block. So I feel like his spot is already secure. I don't think a 2 to 3 week injury is going to do anything to stop that. As a matter of fact, with what his job is, I feel like he's one of those guys that he can afford to lose a couple of weeks and it might be okay, but because the Cowboys want to get him to the season healthy, because he does something that no one of the other tight ends do. And so you want to make sure you have that threat on the field who can block and run downs. And also you might be able to sneak him out when you're in 12 personnel, when you're in 13 personnel, and you have these defenses, thinking run heavy formation, and then you can sneak him and you can sneak Fergie out and kind of pick up some yards that way and be very effective throwing the football if those guys prove to be able to do that way. And in 13 personnel, that's 3 tight ends. So now that third tight end can be Hunter Lipke. That third tight end can be Luke Schoonmaker. That tight end could be Fant. That tight end could be another offensive lineman, and we can run the football very heavy. Whatever may have you, I like what we have going on here in the tight end room. And so I'm glad Spann-Ford's only going to be out a few weeks, and he's a tough guy. So then you have Paris Campbell. Paris Campbell, again, to me, I already said he wasn't going to make the roster. So I don't think this is anything crazy. It's crazy for him because, of course, he's still trying to fight for his roster spot. He's trying to fight to stay in the NFL. But as far as being on the Cowboys roster, I didn't see that happening anyway. And this just makes that more of an uphill climb for him. So cornerback Kalen Carson, he hyperextended his knee. That sucks for him because he had the shoulder thing last year, and everybody wants to say he didn't play as well as he needed to last year. I disagree. He was a rookie transitioning to the NFL. I don't know why everybody expects these 5th and 6th round picks to play like Pro Bowlers or something, and when they don't, everybody's like, "Oh, he had a bad rookie season," and I don't know, man. I'm not sure about Kalen Carson. Nobody was sure about Kalen Carson. That's why he went in the 6th round. Let's stop treating it like he was a 1st round pick or a 2nd round pick, and all of a sudden he's underperforming. Dude was a round away from being undrafted. So let's pump the brakes here. Kalen Carson, I feel like, did exactly what you expect a 6th round player to do. Have some ups, have some downs, need to learn, some potential there to be better. But can you count on that potential? No, because if you could count on that potential, that player gets drafted earlier. So neither here nor there, but it does suck to see him out for 4 to 6 weeks because he had a tough transition. And in order to, smooth out some of those bumpy roads that he was having in his rookie season and become a more consistent player, you would expect that he would need this training camp, to have some learning, to have some timing with Eberflus, to kind of get his feet under him, covering people like CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens. That'll kind of help make you better. But that's not going to happen now. And by the time he gets back, training camp will be over. The Cowboys will be preparing for week 1, and Kalen Carson's gonna. When this happens to you like this, with a player like that, you could either not be on the team, or you could end up being just a low-level guy who's inactive every week for the first 5 or 6 weeks until somebody gets hurt. But in his case, it could be till some of those hurt guys get back, because if Sharon Revel comes back, Trayvon Diggs comes back, and now you've been already inactive for a few weeks, they could put you off the roster. So we'll see what happens there. Andrew Booth, I don't know what his injury is, but I know he did get injured. So we'll just have to get some more details on that and figure out what's going on with him. Wanye Thomas suffered a leg injury. Looks like he's going to be out for a little bit. I don't know if it was a high ankle sprain, but it looks like, it'll be something where he's out for a few weeks. They haven't given a timeline on him either, but I do think his spot is pretty safe as well. He's going to be one of the safeties that they carry. I think if anything, they might carry an extra safety with Elijah now, but if you're having to put one of these other guys on PUP, to get through till the first 4 weeks of the season, that frees up a spot for you to be able to keep someone like that kid out of Syracuse, the safety there, who's actually been showing up in practice as well. Not the day I wanted to cover. I didn't want to be covering injuries instead of covering practice. But I kind of covered a little bit of practice in there too. Like I said, Tyler Guyton was having a great couple of practices and pads. Sam Williams, when he was rushing off the edge, he was getting stymied. Guyton was actually getting into Ezaraku a little bit as well. So he was really holding his own against some of these good edge rushers that the Cowboys have. But as far as how you want to cover an episode, it sucks to only be able to sprinkle in some practice because the injuries are piling up. But like I said, good news, dodged the bullet on Tyler Guyton. He will be here for the season. I do think that's a great thing, even if he's one of those players that people were unsure of just because, again, he didn't come out the gate a Pro Bowler. At least he deserves a little bit of the scrutiny because he's a first round pick, as opposed to a guy like Kalen Carson that gets some scrutiny. But nevertheless, I hope once he comes back from the injury, he can kind of pick up maybe 5 steps before where he left off, because he's going to have to kind of go back to the beginning a little bit. But the great news is he was in shape all off season and stuff like that. So, he should still be able to keep his upper body and worked out, and he should still be able to take some mental reps with the team. And then, hopefully we'll hear about his rehab starting here in a couple of weeks after he gives some time for the bone to heal completely. And then he can kind of start working his way back into strengthening his leg and getting ready for the season. But that's all I got for you guys today. Thank you so much for tuning in. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Like I said, almost at 100, at 81. Once we get there, we'll give something away. You can hit me up at jmilleriyl. That's on Twitter at jmilleriyl. You can also hit me up at knockersonthebottom@outlook.com. Again, knockersonthebottom@outlook.com. You can hit me up at knockersonthebottom@gmail.com. Leave questions or comments below. I try to comment back when I see something that catches my attention. So if you leave a comment below, I'll go back and forth with you a little bit. And one of these days we're gonna do an episode on these comments here, because I have a few that have come up, and now that we have some training camp, to go in, we can kind of take a look at some of these comments in the past and kind of see, some of these storylines start to play out. But like I said, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Love you guys. J Miller if you like. Until next time, this has been Knockers on the Bottom. Peace.